Hey there, thank you for tuning in to The Paradox, a podcast where I connect with people around the world to talk about global paradoxes and their possible solutions. The Paradox has a new episode every Friday, so if you want to stay up to date, I would kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel. And for now, enjoy this episode. My first guest is Fahd. He is from Muscat, Oman originally, but he moved to Groningen in the Netherlands, where he actually started his online business. It's very interesting for me to see a young entrepreneur that actually uses the internet to connect people instead of the opposite. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Fahd. I'm a master student at the University of Groningen, and as Amar mentioned as well, I make and sell food through social media. So it's just something that I've been very passionate about, and I've really enjoyed making food. And that's basically what I do.
Yeah, so we actually met through your cousin Sishan, who is a photographer. And that's also one thing that I find interesting about social media and the internet is that you can basically like meet people from all over the world and connect in a way that wasn't possible before the internet. And I think we are from a generation, obviously, where we actually saw the like the change happen gradually. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you have used the internet, maybe in the past and maybe now, to socialize with people like around the world or in your own community?
Very interesting. I mean, technically, also, we haven't really met in person, right? We've met through social media. So I think one of the most like sort of crazy things about social media is that you can connect with people that you never thought you could connect with before. So, with regards to how I used to use it in my past, I think most of us, or rather me and my generation, when we started off using social media or platforms like Facebook and stuff, I think we initially used to use it just for the games. I mean, I used to use it just to play all the games
Yeah,
that Facebook used to have. So, Farmville, Cafe Mania, and all those other Cafe World, things like that. So, I think initially I used to use Facebook for that. There was this other social media platform that was fairly popular amongst, I think, maybe more of the South Asian culture, which was Orkut. I'm not sure if you heard of it. We used
no,
to use that a lot more, where instead of posting on people's walls, we used to scrap each other, and you could leave like these little recommendations and stuff on people's walls. So I think that's initially sort of what I was using or how I was using social media. It changed for me across like 5 or 6 years ago. I used to in India. I got to work on this project where I work with these bunch of kids from a low income school, and I helped set up a football team there called the Kothurut Wolves. And over there, I gained a lot of media attention through using social media as well. At one point, also, we had to raise money for the children to send one of the kids to England, which was the first opportunity that these kids got to like travel outside of India. And for that, we had to raise about 2,000 euros in 10 days. We just had to write 2,000 euros, and I managed to do it in 10 days rather. And that was all through social media, just literally messaging people and everyone I had on my contact list. And yeah, more recently, I've been using social media to sell my food. Uh, I would be honest, I don't think it's the best platform to sell food on because I don't think people come to social media to order food. But right now, because
yeah.
um we're not a full-time business and we do it part-time and we do it only twice a week as well. So now that's why I sort of use social media to like sell my food on, but with plans to like getting onto other platforms that are specifically curated and made for food as well. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, with regards to meeting people as well, I met my fiance through social media, which
Cool.
was something absolutely crazy because we were across continents also when that happened as well. So
Yeah.
social media does have its power, I'd say.
Definitely, definitely. And I also feel like in that sense, I feel like because you can meet people from all over the world, it also changes your perspective. That's one, but then also it just connects the world. It makes it, I don't know, like less big. It makes it wholesome, and it also it correlates things together. And I think that especially if you are an I don't like to use the word expat because I feel like it's like a fancy word that white people made up to call
Yeah.
immigration like I don't know. But I think especially if you are going to immigrate or migrate to a different country or a different part of the world, I think the internet can be very beneficial to have a sort of understanding of a place where you go, but it can also help you obviously connect to people that are in that place. And even like on a bigger scale, like you mentioned, like you can actually meet the love of your life through social media, which is
Hmm.
crazy. And I've had the same experience as well. So in that sense, I am curious. Like before you came to the Netherlands, how much did you use the internet to research what the Netherlands was like, and how much of it was actually accurate?
I think interesting enough, probably coming from, I mean, this maybe is more to do with the sort of culture that we come from as well. When I was deciding to come to the Netherlands, or rather when I decided to do my master's, uh, I think when I was sort of weighing and assessing like which type of university and which sort of country I wanted to go to, uh, the things that sort of I looked at was number one was what was the financial commitment going to be to this particular opportunity that I had to do, and then on top of that is then okay, is the actual opportunity worth it at this particular university? Is the university ranked high enough? And I think also with so yeah, I would say I use social media to sort of understand those things a little bit better. And weirdly enough, I think again with our culture, with the culture that I'm from, I think it's we start looking at all the other things about, oh, what's the place going to be like, and all these things are sort of secondary as well. I think it sort of works two ways though, like in one sense that not knowing about the place forces us to be adaptable to the place that we're going to. And yeah, I also think that sometimes maybe this is also just me. I do like surprises, uh,
Yeah,
whether they're good or bad. I think it's how you take them in your stride as well. So I knew a little bit
yeah,
about Groningen. I had one again another friend through social media who was actually in Groningen as well when it did happen, and through her I was able to ask about the city and what it was like and all these things. But obviously after reaching here, I started learning out more things about the city. Like for example, how there's a housing crisis here for students. That's something actually I didn't
yeah,
really find out as much as I should have through social media. And I found out about other celebrations and stuff that they have here. Like for example, Zwart Piet. That's something that I always sort of knew about, but didn't really know. But when I came here, I finally saw it and happening, and I was like, oh, this is an actual thing that happens over here.
yeah.
So yeah, that's how I would say. Obviously, there wasn't everything that I could find out through social media, but I did find out a considerable amount of what was like sort of going to happen here.
I think it's interesting what you mentioned about like things like Zwarte Piet, and I guess like the bad side of a culture is that one thing that social media obviously does as well is like it romanticizes things. And
Hmm.
as a filmmaker myself, I am sort of guilty to that as well because it is my job to romanticize things, to sell like this whole idea of like love for this or that, you know. But I do think that's it is quite interesting how social media has an effect to sort of portray this specific image of someone, and it can be completely different when you meet someone in person.
Hmm.
One thing that I also want to mention, I don't think I've mentioned this to you before because this is actually the second time we're speaking on
Yeah,
camera, which is strange as well because we might have been following each other for a couple of
a
years, a
couple of years
year
at
at
least. I
least.
think sometime 2020, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah.
And one thing that I find really cool about you is like you seem to be very extroverted and you're like very much yourself, which I find fascinating because I feel like, especially in South Asian cultures, it's very much it's not encouraged to be extroverted or to be loud. It's basically always I don't know. It's encouraged to be quiet and to listen and to respect people and blah blah blah. And it's cool to see that basically by being yourself, maybe unconsciously, you're also breaking stereotypes. So, do you think that that is something that you do like consciously? Like, do you consciously share whatever you feel like, however you feel, and do you feel like there's a pressure to not share some things because of being South Asian?
I don't think I do it consciously. I think I'm just generally a very loud and proud person in general with almost everything I do. So I think that's where it sort of comes from. But with regards to like, feeling pressure or anything with regards to that, uh, I think there are some times where before I do post something, I actually sit and think about it twice. But I think most of the time I do try to speak my mind as much as possible. But usually that sort of comes the times where I sit and wonder whether I need to post something twice. That sort of comes from I think most South Asian people would say is that sometimes it's like, oh, what would my family say or think about this. But I'd like to think that most of the time also, if there are things that I have to had to think twice about, which isn't a lot also, it's sort of things that I try to be very upfront and direct with my family, about particular things. Like if I put something up and they also say, hey, you shouldn't have done that because obviously there's some things which I don't think that far through. I make it a point that I go and talk to them about it later and be like, hey, why do you feel that way about that in that particular thing? So I do. It's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to just walk up to your parents and like have those type of conversations, but it is definitely a challenge and something which I like to take also because I'd like to believe that people will always change their opinion and stuff if you explain it to them clearly and you also understand, most importantly, their context of why they have that opinion. I think it's really easy to come like tell someone that, hey, I think the way you're thinking about this particular topic is wrong, but it's also really important to understand why they've thought that way, or what life experiences have led them to that particular point to think in that particular way as well. So I always try to push for open dialogue about these particular things. I haven't felt the pressure too much, I think, also with sharing things on social media, because I also do believe that the feed that comes up to you is always what you want to see, right?
Yeah,
You always follow
definitely.
the people that you want to follow. And so in that sense, I always, and the people who follow you also are people who are like-minded in some or the other way as well. So
Yeah.
I really don't think that there's been any societal pressure for me to never not post anything as well. Because even if there are people who eventually be like, hey, why do you post that particular thing? I'd be like, well, I felt this way and I thought it was worth sharing. So I just sort of stick to that.
And it's also like you mentioned, it is in those uncomfortable situations. Like everyone is entitled to obviously feel a specific way, and it also comes from somewhere, like culturally, specific meanings and specific, I don't know, like the way that people think and the way that people's brains are wired are obviously it is basically like it is in culture, it is in how
Mm.
people are raised, and you cannot really do much about that. But what you can do is obviously talk about it, and I think it's actually a good thing to start these uncomfortable conversations with parents and with
Mhm.
adults because it basically also helps with unlearning like
Oh
specific
yeah, for sure, for sure.
habits and thought patterns.
But it's extremely uncomfortable conversation sometimes. I try to giggle and laugh my way through it most of the time as a defense mechanism, and I think sometimes people think that I'm not taking them seriously or not very serious about it. But yeah, I also do think it's really important to laugh off lots of these things as well, because yeah, you need to have a sense of humor. Life's long, and I think it's always good and important to laugh along with these things as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's I think like obviously like humor is like the key to a lot of different things. I feel like
Yeah.
with humor you can basically kill like a lot of different um I don't know, like uncomfortable situations in like one
Yeah.
go. And I feel like it's something that it, this might be like just subjective from my point of view, but it might be something that from in our cultures is basically something that we experience in like movies and in music and stuff, but not really with our families. Like we're very we hold back a lot, and I feel like that's um, we need to get uncomfortable. I feel like that's one thing in South Asian families and
Yeah.
in the culture. We need to sort of allow ourselves to be uncomfortable with each other because in movies and stuff we're comfortable with people being uncomfortable, but in real life it's like a
We're
completely
not,
different
yeah,
story.
and also not just that. Also, I think like generally also with our culture, we're really uncomfortable with lots of other things, but these important issues, we're so like it's a little picky. Like, no, we can't talk about this, or we should not talk about it, because we're very uncomfortable. Like we're very comfortable not having personal space. We're very comfortable not having boundaries over like lots of these other things and stuff. And it's really weird that like when we talking about these real issues and stuff, suddenly it's like, no, I'd like rather not talk about it, or shouldn't be discussed in this particular point of time. I completely agree with you that I think it's really important to also have uncomfortable conversations as well.
I want to ask you like two final questions just to see what your thoughts are on this. So, where do you think our society is headed in 10 years? And it could be like the South Asian society, but society in general. Where do you think we're headed? With the internet as well, obviously.
I think this is something that's been sort of been discussed within social media a lot, and also sort of the thing I think I brought up earlier as well. Because we're always sort of seeing what we want to and have people that follow us, who like the same things that we do. I do certainly believe that social media is creating almost a type of like polarization. Because it's created this whole idea of like, yes, because see, everyone I know is talking about the same thing that I believe in, or and whatever it is. So I think that keeps reinforcing that yes, me and my thoughts and my beliefs are right, because everyone around me seems to be reinforcing that idea of it as well. So I do believe we're heading to a certain degree of polarization. I'd be curious to know how, we go about it and break it, or try to make it different. But yeah, I try to at least consciously try to follow people who don't necessarily fit in with my idea and way of thinking. It's very distressing content sometimes that these people put out, but I try to tell myself that, okay, see it, because you need to also understand why people are saying this and why people are doing things in a particular way. So I do think we're sort of heading to a certain degree of polarization, but again, that's just a sort of pessimistic outlook. I still also do believe that there's going to be new levels of connecting with people that we can't even imagine right now. Like uh, the fact that I met my fiance across a continent just on social media
That's
still
crazy.
it blows my mind to this
That's
day that I was
crazy.
able to do that,
Yeah.
and I don't think that would have ever been possible without social media.
Yeah.
I also do believe there's going to be some crazy connections that you can make with people in different parts of the world for different reasons as well. So I think that's going to
Yeah.
happen as well. But I just hope it's all as long as we don't get too polarized.
I will give you an example. Like, so what you just described, it's actually like there's a term for it. It's called the filter bubble, and the filter bubble basically is how algorithms basically determine how we think. And it's actually not a new thing because the filter bubble actually happened before the internet, but then in culture.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the way that people shaped you was basically an algorithm for the way that you started to think and the way that you start to act. Now it's just like digitalized basically. But in terms of like being open on the internet and social media, it has allowed me, for example, to travel all around the world, to
Mm-hmm.
meet different people and actually ask them what they think of specific things. So, for example, when I traveled to India and to Pakistan in the same trip, and it was super fascinating to me because obviously, if you talk to an Indian about Pakistan or vice versa, you have to be very careful what you say. Where it is that in India and Pakistan itself, it's a very different conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
if you allow yourself to use social media in a healthy way to actually explore and discover, you can actually learn so much about the world. But
Mm-hmm.
I think people should use it as a tool to actually take like charge of their lives and do stuff in real life instead of live through the internet through this filter bubble because that's not going to bring them much further than what they already know. You know?
Mm-hmm. With regards to this whole conversation about India Pakistan, I can very confidently tell you that me being an Indian, Pakistanis are so similar to us as well, and there's absolutely nothing
Dude,
wrong
we're
with having
literally the
with that.
same.
And
We're
even
literally the same people.
with Bangladeshis as well, with Sri Lankans, with Nepalis, everyone from South Asia, we have so many similarities, and I think it's really important for us to understand that and take comfort in that as well.
Yes.
Like with my own business as well, I work with this baker called Fatima, Food Jar by Fatima, who makes excellent cakes and desserts. And for anyone who does care about it, she's from Pakistan as well. We get along so well. We have so much in common as well when we work together, and it's all because we come from the same point of cultural, like starting point as well. And it's really I like to tell to let people know as well. Like I feel comfortable interacting with her because she understands my way of thinking so much more better than I feel like most other people as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. It's about taking charge of that as well.
Yeah, I hope like in the future, social media because now there's like a lot of like xenophobia through like towards
Hmm.
each other, and I feel like social media can really help improve that if it is used in the right way. So I hope
Hmm.
like bigger platforms like Facebook and Instagram, also or Meta, whatever it's called right now. I hope they also sort of contribute to this and also try to. Diversify, but also have a more inclusive society because they can do that. But right now it's just it's a weird place to be. Like social
It
media is a
is,
weird
yeah.
place to be.
If you really like this episode of The Paradox, please like and subscribe. They've got some awesome stuff coming out as well. And yeah, if you're ever interested in eating Indian food in Groningen, look up curryme._nl on Instagram or curryme.nl. And yeah, hopefully we can always make sure you have affordable and accessible meals. But thank you so much for your time.